No, I'm not in Bonnie, Scotland by a lock, but by a narrowboat on a canal. I'm here in Pusey in the county of Wiltshire at the Barge Inn. Whilst its patrons are enjoying a pint outside or at the bar, in the corner of the newly refurbished barn, the 2021 Bases at the Barge Conference is taking place. And after being locked down for a year and a half, alternative woken thinkers are taking their seats for the first speaker of the day, Birmingham UFO Group's Dave Hodrien, talking about alien abductions and screen memories. I asked Dave, what exactly was this phenomenon?
Yeah, well, with abductions and visitations and contacts, sometimes people won't see the beings or their craft in their true form. They'll see a kind of a masked image of certain kinds. So the beings will disguise themselves so they'll remember them as something else. Or sometimes people may see a craft in the sky, but they'll recall it as something else, such as an aircraft or helicopter. They probably deciding when they don't use it with people. There's plenty of cases on record, some which are quite traumatic, which don't appear to have screen memories. So obviously with Betty and Barney Hill, for example, they were quite traumatised by their experiences. They saw the beings as they actually were. Screen memories seem to be more prevalent in childhood, and obviously Betty and Barney Hill were grown up. But I've dealt with lots of cases, including adults who've had screen memories as well. So it seems a bit random. We don't really know exactly when it occurs and when it doesn't occur, and the reasons for that. A lot of the time they seem to focus on things that are specific to the individual. So it's almost like they reach into their mind, find something which is familiar to them or which they associate with, and use that as a screen. Not in all cases, but there's quite a few cases like that.
So is it kind of like it's almost a subduing of the thing, just to keep them still for whatever reason they want, rather than drugging them, they just kind of blowing bubbles like you would for a kid who's about to have an injection, that kind of thing.
Absolutely, yeah. I think there's numerous different explanations, and I went over those different explanations in my talk earlier on. But for me personally, I think it's something that the beings are doing directly. Now, there are multiple reasons why they might be doing that, largely maybe to reduce the trauma of the situation, but also they're acting covertly, so they're doing this on a worldwide level. And at the moment it's covert, as in they haven't landed everywhere and made themselves fully aware to the human race. So this may be to so that when people remember their experiences, they don't see the beings as they actually are. They describe seeing something else.
Okay. Any other alien races doing this, or is it just the Greys that are doing this?
Primarily, it seems to be the Greys. But obviously, if somebody doesn't recall seeing the actual being later on, and they just see and they remember the screen memory, we can work out it's a contact experience from everything else. So, for example, they might be aboard a craft that they don't recognise in a completely different location, but the screen memory remains to the whole experience. So they don't always remember it. They can sometimes get the memories come back through either flashbacks, daytime, or during nighttime dreams, or when they're hypnotically regressed. Sometimes you can break past the screen memory using that as well.
Okay, now Ronnie and Philip Kinsella, you're familiar with them. Now Ronnie had an experience many years ago, I think it was 1982 or 83, when he was a young child, and he said that he had a kind of doctor experience where these doctors wanted to perform an operation. They said it was absolutely necessary. Poor Ronnie was very terrified, and he said they appeared to have masks on at the time. And then later on, I can't remember the time difference. Later on, he did see an image of the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, there we go.
Floating in his room.
Yes.
So would you think that was a classic kind of screen memory?
Absolutely, yeah. And he's seen two different screen memories there. So in quite a lot of cases, people report seeing doctors, and they may see them as human doctors in face masks and normal doctor gear. And sometimes the whole surroundings can be like a hospital as well. And we're aware that they haven't been to hospital and it's a contact experience. Cheshire Cat, so in some cases with screen memories, people see fictional characters, such as cartoon characters, and that's a classic example there. And it's very likely that he was interested in that book as a child, knew what the Cheshire Cat looked like, and that was how they presented themselves to him.
Now, sometime after that episode, and I can't remember the difference in time again what it was, he actually suffered a seizure at school, passed out. So whether the doctors had done something and that was the cause of the seizure, they were doing something to prevent further problems with him later on, and the seizure was the last thing of it, I don't know.
Yes.
Has that happened to other people?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. There certainly seems to be some level of protection with some of these experiences. who have contact, especially if they're getting repeat cases throughout their life. Numerous people have reported to me having experiences where they've been saved from harm, so where they might hear a telepathic voice in their head and they'll move out the way of something, and then there's a car accident, this sort of thing. So it seems that they are protecting and looking after the people that are taking it. Now, whether that's for their benefit or for ours, we don't really know.
Hello, Bases at the Barge and Bases Project, hello. Yeah, it's great to see you all. Familiar faces, new faces. It's been so long, hasn't it? We've been separated, now we're back together.
Next up was regular conference speaker Ben Emlyn-Jones, who was pleased to be back in the saddle, presenting his talk, What is going to happen next? I asked Ben if it was a big crowd.
There's a huge crowd there. Everyone is like just happy to get out and about and mix again, be with our tribe, so to speak. We've missed each other. We haven't seen each other. There's been Zoom calls, but it's not the same. I myself, it's great to get back on a stage and talk to a live audience after so long of not being able to do it. I was a bit nervous, to be honest, and wondered if I still
what
had
was the
it.
subject you spoke about?
I gave some perspectives on what I think is going to happen in the near future based on the immediate past and the current events, which is not an easy thing to do. It's very much speculation, but I made some educated guesses at what I think might happen as a result of, for example, the UAP situation with the increasing transparency of ET or possible ET visitation of this planet. Of course, the scamdemic and everything associated with that, vaccination and other things. But I think I've done as good a job as I can to provide some answers to the question of which is the title of my talk, what is going to happen next.
So what is going to happen next, in your opinion, then?
I think that we will get more information on the UAP phenomenon. That's coming, but probably from other countries as well as the United States. There's a definite pattern that seems to be emerging, a pace that has been set, and it shows no signs of slowing down. What has already been released, I think, it's something that is going to automatically demand further questions. I don't think it really can be shut down now. There's too much information out there already to prevent people asking the necessary questions for further answers and more information.
And do you think the coronavirus pandemic, if it's a scandemic, is connected in any way to disclosure in any way?
It is, yes, because indirectly, because both these things, I think, are acts of strategy. And in the case of the COVID-19 pandemic, I think it's an excuse the government are using to exercise their authoritarian muscles, hyper-regulate the economy, control our life, put us all into situations where we can have everything dictated to us, remove cash from circulation and from the economy, things like this. The UAP situation appears to be the opposite of that. There appears to be a very, very powerful force at work now, which is fighting against that. And it's quite senior. It may involve people who were formerly part of the New World Order, so to speak. That is, people within the military and within the state who are now working against that agenda. I hope that's true. I really do. It does. All indication is that that's actually what's happening.
So it's two fractions fighting against each other, perhaps?
That's the most likely explanation. That best explains the events happening in the world, in my view, yeah.
Current COVID regulations permitted up to 50 people per day over the 3-day conference. Whilst COVID lockdowns affected everyone else, organiser Miles Johnston has continued throughout the so-called pandemic.
We've never stopped.
Never stopped, even during the lockdown. You went
No,
online.
that's the point. We got a conference away last July.
Yeah.
We did it all in the studio.
Yeah.
And if this was going to continue, we set this conference at the June 21st lockdown level, which meant we only take 50 people because everybody's sitting at round tables.
Yeah.
And because we knew that due to the way that the biology works with the vaccines and with the way that the things are going to work, things are going to start picking up in the 21st of June. Mm-hmm. So we knew they would then lie about that, get everybody's hopes up, con everybody, because the strategy they're using is from the art of war. You make people think they're winning and then you hit them hard. Right. And that's what they're doing all the time, and that's in the Lockstep report, which goes back 2010, where they planned all this. Right?
Okay.
So the point with this was to get a small audience, get the minimum, you get people living and meeting and doing what they're doing now. They're all talking to each other, they're actually seeing each other. So that's the whole point of doing this. So whilst the in-house numbers, I've been hit hard on YouTube, so I can't upload anything. I can risk uploading on my other YouTube channels, but basically YouTube's finished in terms of any creative, forward-thinking product. So the idea is to try and find somewhere else.
Let's engage with the energy.
Crowds were also pleased to see the welcome return of Tony Toppin.
I've looked down the barrel of the gun of the UFO cover-up. I know what's going on, but some of it I cannot talk about for my own sake. I can't talk about some of it in public.
I asked ex-BBC reporter Jemma Cooper how she was adjusting to life in the alternative scene.
I'm open to all of it now, and what I have learned through what happened to me with my dramatic exit from the BBC, being roundly demonised, the only person that's ever happened to apart from me is David Icke, so at least I'm in good company. But I've learned through my conscious awakening and through being involved in these circles, it's much better to surrender and let the universe take you where it wants to go. So I'm open to all of it, and it's still my real field is the multidimensional aspect of humans and human consciousness, and where we go at night, we're on the astral plane, dreams are much more than dreams, and that still is my natural kind of love for this subject, because we're so much more powerful than we realise. And a lot of stuff that's being talked about today and through the weekend at base is about contact with extraterrestrial beings. I prefer to think of them as multidimensional. Mm-hmm. And I've had my own contact experience with beings when I was in a very high vibration state, when I've been doing a lot of yoga, a lot of meditation. That's when I saw my first UFO. That's when my nighttime experiences with shadows and silhouettes, like one of our speakers talked about earlier, were in my bedroom. It was quite frightening. But it was because I was very high vibration at that point, and I was eating a very clean diet, I was living a very clean lifestyle. So it's still, the dots kind of all connect. Once you realise you're multidimensional consciousness, you realise there are other beings that are multidimensional consciousness, and we can communicate with them. If we get out of our 3D matrix and the ego and what am I going to have for tea, and I haven't paid my gas bill, yeah, that's valid, we live in this world, but also we're so much more than that. So still for me it's how powerful we are as humans and how radiant and brilliant we are. This woman has a lot of things to say.
As the Saturday's events reached their end with speaker Sophia Green, Dave Hodrien still had a few cards up his sleeve.
Okay, yeah, so for a number of years I've been working behind the scenes on a card game entirely themed on the UFO subject. So let's have a look inside the box of UFO Wave. So you see it's got this flip-top lid, and the instruction manual are themed like a top-secret document. And up here, this is our mascot, and if you can zoom in on that, this is our alien mascot, who I've named Bob. And I've tried to keep things as streamlined as much as possible, so even if you don't really have an interest or play that many card games, you should be able to pick it up quite well. Okay, so I've opened up the lid of the box, and we've got the 2 stacks of cards in there. In the final version, there's going to be a bit more space. These ones were right up to the lid. So let's have a look at what we've got. This is one of the species cards, and this is the mantids. So you can see there the detailed cartoon artwork that the artist has done for the game. Let's see what's next. I don't know who we're going to get. Oh, there we go, the greys.
The famous greys.
So these are the species you actually play as in the game. So it's you against both your opponents, who are other alien species out there trying to perform the same activities. This card's called the Scan. And what it represents is cards that are actually out there in the area. It's what you can see from the windows of your craft. And there's a number of different types of things you'll find on the scan. The first of those is activities. And there's a particular activity. This one is recon. So with this one, essentially looking at the ground terrain of the area.
So when can we see this game on the market?
Okay, so I'm planning to release the game via Kickstarter, the crowdfunding website. I don't have the money up front to make the game, so I'm reaching out to both the UFO community and the gaming community to back the game, and then the money will be collected. I'll manufacture in bulk, and I'll be shipping it out. We're aiming, the Kickstarter goes live on the 29th of this month, 29th of July at midday.
Hopefully we can attend many more basis conferences as well as other conferences around the UK. But if we're locked down again, I guess we can all play UFO Wave to keep us occupied. It's Neil Geddes Ward at the Basis Conference in Pewsey, Wiltshire.